once thought impossible is now broken. Eliud Kipchoge.
He's trying to become a pioneer and a trailblazer right now. It's a threshold so bold and inconceivable.
Can Eliud
yet
Kipchoge break the course record in the 2023 Boston Marathon? We are now only 3 days away from this year's installment of the Boston Marathon, and it feels like Kipchoge is once again on a path to greatness. But this might be the first time where people have actually doubted his abilities to break a certain course record. And the reason for that is because the course record in Boston is absolutely ridiculous. Back in 2011, Geoffrey Mutai ran what many people consider to be the perfect storm of marathon performance. He ran a time of 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 2 seconds, which on the Boston course is flying. And the reason that he was able to attain this time was because of a few key factors. For one, you had Ryan Hall up front pushing the pace very fast over the opening half marathon, basically acting as a pace setter, and he went through the opening half marathon in 1 hour, 1 minute, and 54 seconds. Another big factor here that made this finishing time possible was the fact that a tailwind was pushing Geoffrey Mutai throughout this entire marathon, basically. So you had a good pace up front, you had someone practically acting as a pace setter, you had a strong tailwind, and you also had ideal racing conditions, somewhere between 45 degrees and 55 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the entire race. This was a perfect storm, and Geoffrey Mutai took advantage of this, running a time that is almost 3 minutes faster than any previous performance in Boston history. This is a very, very good time to run on the Boston course. And the real question now is, can Eliud Kipchoge, the objective greatest marathon athlete of all time, take this time down? And I wanted to touch on a few key points here that many people have brought up to prove whether or not he actually can break this record. So first and foremost, let's look at the objective facts about Kipchoge. He has run under 2 hours and 3 minutes various times in the marathon. In fact, his average time for his victories in major marathons is 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 11 seconds, which is basically the exact same time as Geoffrey Mutai. But can he break this course record with normal racing conditions? For a lot of people, this answer is objectively no. It doesn't matter how fast Kipchoge is, it doesn't matter how many undefeated streaks he has had. If he does not have favorable conditions, this course record is basically impossible. And while I do think that the tailwind helped Geoffrey Mutai run this performance, I don't think this necessarily disqualifies Kipchoge from being able to run a 2:03:02. At the moment, Kipchoge is just in historic form. He is just so fast and so consistent that I think if he has any favorable conditions, whether it be good conditions for temperature, good humidity, I think he still has a solid chance at attacking this record. But there is one key factor that I think he will need in order to challenge 2:03. And that is to have at least one athlete running up front at a solid pace for the opening half marathon. Now, back in 2011, we previously mentioned that Ryan Hall's push up front made a big difference for this race, and it objectively did. Having someone to break the wind for you can conserve so much energy, and it clearly aided Geoffrey Mutai on this day. Now, Kipchoge has proven the ability to run up front way faster than anyone else in the race, but he's had pace setters in every single record-breaking performance that he's had. So the fact that no pace setters are to run in Boston does make this race a lot different. So if Kipchoge ultimately runs up front alone throughout the first half, it will be very challenging to break the course record. I will say I think that this is very unlikely because the fact that the opening half is practically completely downhill leads a lot of athletes to run faster than they probably should. You've had athletes such as Yuki Kawauchi running the first half much faster than the rest of the field, and while I don't think that an athlete is going to go out in 1 hour flat or anything like that, I think that Kipchoge will have good company over the opening 13 miles, so I'm not too concerned about this. Now, the next topic that a lot of people are concerned about is the unpredictable nature of the weather on the Boston Marathon. A lot of times you'll see rain, you'll see wind. In fact, you'll see wind directly into the athletes' faces, which can slow them down drastically. If there is a tailwind, Kipchoge has a very solid chance of breaking the record. However, if there's a headwind, that course record is going to stand. If Kipchoge does have to run into a headwind at all, it's going to make running under 2:03 next to impossible. So the wind does have to be favorable. And another thing that I think is very important is the actual temperature. If the temperature exceeds 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, you're looking at a very difficult task to break 2:03. To have to attack the hills over the second half with heat and potential sun, can significantly drain energy more so than any other course. But if the conditions are at all favorable, and there is somewhat of a push up front, that also will grant Kipchoge a better chance at attacking this course record. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about, and I think this is one of the most underreported parts of Boston, is the final 10 kilometers. Because despite what a lot of people think about this course, being that the first half is mostly downhill and the second half is mostly uphill, you actually have a very strong downhill final 10 kilometers. And this actually played a key role in Geoffrey Mutai's performance back in 2011. Now, incredibly, Mutai actually ran his final 10 kilometers, and he ran this final 10 kilometers in 28 minutes and 22 seconds, a pace of 2 minutes and 50 seconds per kilometer, or 4:33 per mile. Ironically, this final 10K stretch from Geoffrey Mutai was practically exactly 2-hour pace for the marathon, which is a tempo that Eliud Kipchoge is quite familiar with. Although it is quite rare to see this kind of pace go down over the final 10K. And I think this could potentially play a big role in whether or not Kipchoge does in fact break this record. Now, I've played this scenario over in my head multiple times, and I think the best chance that Kipchoge has is to run the first half relatively relaxed, splitting a time of perhaps 1:01:30 or maybe around 62 minutes. And then for these pretty drastic uphill portions, he'll basically just need to get through them. And if he does have the right energy remaining, the final 10K could potentially be a beastly moment for Kipchoge to showcase his dominance once again. Now, if you'll remember, in the 2019 London Marathon, Kipchoge did close his final 2 miles in under 9 minutes. In fact, he hit a time of right at 8 minutes and 56 seconds, with his final 2 miles run in 4:26, followed by a 4-minute and 30-second mile. Now, these split times are slightly faster than what Geoffrey Mutai did in 2011. But again, he was running in Boston, and Kipchoge was running on the flat course in London. There's so many things that could happen on the day, and there are so many athletes that potentially could run close to Kipchoge's times, but there's also the possibility that Kipchoge could not have his perfect race like he typically does. We've only ever seen Kipchoge really run under his true potential once, and that was in the 2020 London Marathon. And on this day, it did include cold temperatures as well as rain, which, in my personal opinion, I think the rain played a significant role in the fact that Kipchoge did not run his fastest time here. In fact, he only finished 8th in 2 hours and 6 minutes. If there is rain on the day, you can pretty much kiss any possibility of the course record goodbye. But let's look at least realistic scenarios here. If there's favorable conditions with minimal wind, what are the odds that Kipchoge does in fact break the course record? Will he be able to run under 2:05? Will he be able to run under 2:04? Or will he somehow shock the world once again and break the course record in Boston, breaking 2:03, becoming a legend, and potentially becoming the nearly unbeatable GOAT throughout the entire history of the marathon in the future? There have been many people that have stated that if Kipchoge does break this course record, it would actually be his greatest accomplishment to date. And while this is a debatable point, it would certainly be one of his greatest moments, because he's never raced in Boston, this is a very unpredictable course, and Geoffrey Mutai's record from 2011 is one of the greatest moments in marathon history. Not only was it the fastest time by over 3 minutes, but he also was in amazing shape that year, because he also went on to break the course record in the 2011 New York City Marathon, and that course record still stands today. Clearly, there are many obstacles standing in Eliud Kipchoge's path to breaking the Boston Marathon course record. But at this point, I just want to hear from all of you. How fast do you think Kipchoge will run in Boston, and do you think he has a chance at breaking the course record that has now stood for 12 years? Leave your thoughts in the comments section down below.